Okay, take two of part two, the doo-doo. Okay. Thank you guys for joining us for the Impact Blueprint. We're going to go over today what exactly you are probably missing in your advice-based industry. So for today, we are going to talk about what are we solving? What does the actual Impact Blueprint look like? I'm going to give you some real life examples and we're going to have some closing thoughts. So when looking at this, we always have to set up the stage of the reason why this is so important to solve right now. So when we look at Canada and the US, and that's where all of us work is within Canada and US, we look at what is happening with businesses, and this has been happening for a long time. And what also is happening is that is not getting any better. It's actually getting worse. So when we look at one third of new businesses close their doors within the first 5 years, and there's this large gap that everyone talks about. It's the lack of grit and relationship skills, marketing and finance, leadership, people skills, operational administration skills, all of these things. And according to the 2025 data from the US Labor Board, 20% of businesses fail in their first year, 50 in their first 5 years, and 65% in their first 10 years. So there's a lot of things that are happening and going on. And we can sit and talk about these stats over and over and over, which many people do. But what our job is and why we all came together is actually solving it instead of stating all these stats. The reason, the research behind it. So when we look at the main industry that we all work in and where we serve is financial services. And so when we look at only 6% make it past the first 2 years, that's a 94% failure rate. And when we look down the small, medium enterprises and comparing it to other businesses within Canada and US, 67 make it past 2 years. 72% make it past 2 years in the US. So why are we struggling so much within advice-based industries? So when we look at it, it's really difficult to scale on an industry based on giving advice. We have a behavioral psychologist on the team that will help us understand of why it is so difficult and what you truly need to be able to be successful in this world. Because it requires so much strategic growth, connection, execution. Because this largest wealth transfer, we're hearing about it all over the place. It is happening. People are looking, people are trying to understand, and they want better information. They don't want to be shamed. They don't want to be taught about tax optimization and all things. They don't care about this. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. And they want to sit at someone's table who they can really see themselves having a great, enduring relationship with generation after generation. So when I was younger, when I first came to the industry 27 years ago, I heard one of my senior executive leaders standing up on stage at a national sales conference, which happens every year. And he stood on that stage and he said, "We need to help advisors build profitable, sustainable, and predictable businesses." And I sat there scribbling note after note after note, going, yes, yes, we need to. How do we do this? How do we help the advisor do this? Because it's the individual. We need to help this individual. I was wrong. I was really wrong. It took me 27 years to figure this out, where the truth is behind how we can help the independent advisor truly build profitable, sustainable, and predictable business. And that was actually by having an impact blueprint. So looking at the blueprint itself, it's not just a journey that needed to be put together, a cycle that needed to be put together. It was actually a team of individuals to take and help with that grit, with that marketing, with the behaviors, with the automation, with the tools that could come and help you with structure, apply the right strategy, and then apply the correct tactics to move forward. So, with this very mindfully, I have this incredible fellowship that I like to call this team that I have, where I was able to bring in Jenna. We can talk about that she is a behavioral psychologist, but she's more than that. She's actually in it. We sit and have conversations all the time. We test and we reframe and we test and we reframe and we test and we reframe and then we implement. I have my wonderful friend Sean, the man, the myth, the legend. He is the one that helps us with systems, with tools, taking all this information that I pull out of you, taking all this information that Derek constructs and captions with incredible copy that is bold and smart. He puts them in the correct systems and tools that make sense for your business. He does not believe in plug and play, and neither do we. The change that we need to have has to be this way. And then Derek, Doc Copy, who I love and adore so much, and he has been with me actually since the absolute beginning. It has taken me a very, very long time to find my fellowship. Derek watches you follow him on social media, and he will take what you say or what you post, and he'll respond in a comment, and he will reframe with copy with words that he pulls out that are bold and smart. So I'm really, really happy to introduce my team, and they'll be chiming in later on today. So Frank Lloyd Wright was right. I absolutely love his architect, his journey, everything he stands for. And this is the reason why, and one of the solves I had to come forward with 30 years in this industry and really watching testing, asking a lot of questions. And it came to me when I was actually sitting on a massage table, which was quite funny and entertaining, but it also speaks to the proof that only 16% of your problems are solved while you are at work. This biggest problem that I couldn't frame, that I couldn't explain and put together came to me while I was sitting getting a massage. So as we were talking, she was talking about my massage therapist was taking a course in a class about architect, about good design, on how to take a 3,000 square foot room, apply some of Frank Lloyd Wright's thinkings and teachings, and able to make it feel spacious, putting it in the right environment, having the individual that was going to have this apartment feel comfortable, feel at home. And as I sat there, I'm going, oh my gosh, I kept thinking about all of Frank Lloyd Wright. It just came flooding back to me because I follow him so much because we too are about to build a retreat for business owners to come hang out and spend time in the right environment. So when we look at Frank Lloyd Wright, he had a total design philosophy. He believed architecture should be organic. It should integrate with its surroundings. It should reflect the person and the family who lives within it. Everyone, think about yourself, your business, who you serve, what you do, how important and how this connects. He also insisted that the interiors, the furniture, the tableware, everything was designed exclusively and executed by his team, by his fellowship. To Wright, it would dilute that whole entire blueprint, that whole entire piece of architecture, if he wasn't to continue on with the fellowship, if it wasn't within his team. So the importance of his team was he was famously protective of the execution and of his teams. Clients who wanted a right home must agree right from start to finish that client utilized Wright's team. That fellowship he founded was not just a school of architecture or a whole bunch of craftsmen or individuals that worked together. It was a living, breathing, organic studio full of apprentices, designers, everyone who worked together on that similar vision. So Wright controlled that whole entire process ever so tightly, as I do with the Impact Blueprint. It only unifies the team even more so. And the greatest example I could even give is when you go and try to do some marketing out there. You go and try and do something, and you go to a social media manager or a copywriter, and you say, I have this idea. And they don't really understand who you are, where you're going from. You don't give them the blueprint to build off of. And that creative individual is going to go on their own creative way. That's what creatives do. But if you give a creative a framework, a boundary, an understanding, that creative, that person, that individual can design something even more stronger because they feel like they belong. They see the vision. They can curate this, which is extremely, extremely powerful. So why did all this work, right, for Frank Lloyd Wright? And why has this worked for us with this approach as we've been beta testing over the last 5 years? It's consistency. Every line, every detail aligned with the original blueprint. We use all of these pieces, we curate and we join them with the right tool, with the right AI, with the right system automation, and we back it up with incredible behavioral psychology. It's accountability, one team, one standard, no compromises. I can't tell you guys, I am not, not immune to this either. I get to a certain point, I need someone to help me actually do the next step. I have dropped so many balls to myself in my years because I needed someone else to work with in their genius to continue on the vision, right? And this is legacy. This is incredible legacy. That home, a Frank Lloyd Wright home, has kept its absolute value. It is a work of art. Just as when you build your business on this impact blueprint, you have an absolute work of art. I can't tell you in the last couple of years how we've solved the succession planning gap on having people 10 times, 12 times their renewals, their trailers coming to them because they have systems, they have tools. It is built for an ideal client. It is absolutely clear. So the buyer understands and is in line with the vision, and the seller is at ease because they know their vision and their legacy is continued. So all the story about Frank Lloyd Wright, it aligns beautifully from what we're doing: structure, strategy, tactics. It's one team that understands the vision. And with that, I'm going to pause right here and I'm going to ask Jenna to kind of chime in a little bit from a behavioral psychology and from this relationship between Frank Lloyd Wright was right and what we're building at enRICHed with the Impact Blueprint. Where does your brain go?
So many different places. One, I love the connection because I love that architecture. Mostly because just from a design perspective, it isn't about taking something and putting it in a place. It's about understanding that place and building within it. And just the language of total design, if you transform that into our corporate language or organizational speak, that's when we talk about the whole person. And we used to talk about work-life balance and creating that, but in today's corporate and business world, it's really just about understanding that you're working with people. Even if you build widgets, even if you create architecture, even if you design things, you are still interacting with people. And fundamentally, you have to understand people in order to do that work. And one of the most profound things I think about this connection and this story, Kim, is I've worked in classrooms for most of my career, and that's very similar. Classrooms, athletes, they are there's someone who is leading a thought, an idea, a movement, a conscious. They're trying to get people to a new place, to new goals. And that requires not just a team of people, but coalescing that team of people. In the time that we see it work the best, when your sports team has a great coach and all the right players, you think about it organically. That's what Frank Lloyd Wright did. He brought the right people in to the right environments around the right time. And that takes a blueprint, right? That takes strategy. It takes time. It takes understanding all of this. And again, that's not just the human behavior part of it. It's how all of those pieces align: the
Mhm.
structure, the foundation, the technology, um, the all of it. So
All
much.
the
I can
bits.
keep
All,
going.
all the bits, all the bits, all the bits. It's really exciting and I love when all of us come together and we're talking or whether we're working on a client talking about this. It's amazing to watch how excited all of us become when we're looking at this impact blueprint because this is that whole vision. This is that part about, again, when we look at those numbers of why financial services only 6% make it past 2 years, right? Compared to other businesses out in the marketplace or out or industries out in the world in Canada and US. There's this part of motivation or continuation of that idea. So when we look at this part and when we understand and you make a pie chart and that's your life, that's your 24 hours. You look at your 24 hours. Take that pie chart, cut it right in half. 50% of that pie chart is your everyday things that you need to do. 8 hours for sleeping, 3 hours for eating, right? All of that stuff, half of your time, half of your 24 hours, 12 hours gone towards all of this. So now you just have 12 hours to accomplish all of these things. things are going to go by the wayside. There's a reason why. So, giving everybody this blueprint that we've worked on so much to help you uncover, to validate, to position what you are doing and what you need to do, which has been tested alongside how our minds work behavioral as human beings and what truly, functionally, systematically makes sense with really good words that deliver incredible, that niche inward towards the ideal client and the client themselves. So when we look at this part, this is this whole entire blueprint that we start with. So when we look at the impact blueprint, remember structure, then strategy, then tactics. So this part here never changes. This is static. Okay. This is where it all builds from. So when you look at it, that part that everyone has to do in the beginning, which is that part that I found out through all these years of research, questioning, and working with my fellowship and asking incredible questions and listening, is that no one really starts from the unique value proposition from a way that makes sense. And the way it makes sense in an advisor based industry is truly and completely mindset and behaviors. So, with this part here, I'm going to pause just a little bit and I want Sean to kind of chime in on this part. And Sean, I'm going to have you chime in a couple of places. But this one here, when I came to you in the beginning, and we profiled this certain client and we were looking at and we understood who we were serving. Excuse me, I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. And I look at all those lines and I kind of have it going through my head all the time of something that you said, that AI, treat it like it's your intern. And then you also talked about you don't believe in plug and play because people have tech stacks all over the place. So I look at every connecting line. And I just want you to say out loud what your brain thinks when you see all those connecting lines within this org chart or this blueprint that's out here.
Well, I first want to start by saying that anything that we're doing with systems for any client, without this core foundation, the structure, we're unable to have success in building any type of system that's there. Because a lot of times when we're putting systems together or tech stacks and things like that, there needs to be a purpose behind it other than just having software that's there. It needs to serve a purpose. And when we start to understand what's the reason we need to plug this piece of software into your business, because it's helping deliver upon what you want that client experience to be. What's the direction of the business? What's your tech abilities as an advisor? Because that's going to play into it really key in there. All this big work that you do in the beginning makes our job of architecting a unique system for you so much easier, and pretty much makes that pathway to success pretty much guaranteed, that's there. Because a lot of times the problem we see is somebody will get a system, we use that term, software, CRM, whatever it is, only because their buddy said they need it. And then they get overwhelmed because it doesn't play into how they use tools, what they need. And it just ends up you just becoming a monthly donor to a software company, because you don't actually use it, right? And that's the worst place to be. And stuff's outdated. It's in multiple places. So what we really find is you don't actually need this huge tech stack in the end if you understand those three core structure pieces that are there.
Mhm. Hmm.
Can I jump in really quickly as well,
Yeah.
Sean? Because that's a differentiator in this process, which is most businesses and leaders, and for all the right reasons, spend their time focused on their client, customer, the end game. From a behavioral perspective, what you said, if you don't understand, Sean, your own tech skills and
Mhm.
you're only focused on your clients, you aren't going to succeed because you're going to overwhelm yourself. So, from a behavioral perspective, we know we teach how we learn, and that's not always how others learn. So, we have to be mindful of our own behaviors, our own skills, our own needs, in order to build this. That's part of that foundation that I just feel like is such a differentiator for this uh,
Hmm.
full process.
Hmm. Hmm. I love all this, and I want to really be very clear. This is not an overnight process at all, right? So everyone truly expects, or the expectation is a little bit out of line, and we want to be serious about this. Every part and every client who has been successful, the advisor we just posted, right, or that I just posted in my stories around 100% open rate on an email campaign on a system called Levitate. You guys, as Jenna would say, that's unicorn level shit, right? That does not happen. Sean works in this world all the time. I don't know if you've ever seen that happen before. So when John was showing me, and it was all of the stuff we built out in the beginning, but we spent 5 to 7 months working on the value proposition, the pillars, how we were all doing this, what the brand story formula worked, how he worked as a human being, and how his ideal client learns and responds to, right? It's
Mhm.
massive. It's massive and important,
Yeah, I mean that result is mind-blowing. I think the only other way you can do that is if you do a campaign of sending one email to your mom.
right? Because that was my first question was, okay, how many people are on the campaign? That's my first question before I start screaming and yelling, right?
Yeah.
It was huge. He's been in business for a very long time. It was his active client list. And for consistently for 2 months, a weekly email since August, it had been open 10 or 12 times. Can't remember which one, at 100%. Right. So this stuff works. This is not, this idea that we're bringing forward is not a, hey, I think this will work. We have proven it. It does work. And another client on the weekend sent me a snapshot of their YouTube shorts that went up, 250 some views on it within the first hour. And the average watch rate, Sean, you would like this one too. The average watch rate, 386%. So what
Wow.
that, right? What that meant, and I'll put the screenshots up later on, I'll add it into this to show you guys this is real. So what that meant was 200 and some odd people were watching, but incredible amount of people were re-watching that 60-second clip over and over and over. Because we spent the time with me in the beginning of who is your ideal client? Who are you as a person? Who is your ideal client? How do you like to learn? How do they like to learn? What are your pains? What are their pains? Coalescing and putting this all together. And I will not be able to do this without Derek, without Sean, and without Jenna. So this is incredible. And you're looking at this whole process right here. This is at minimum, again, 6 months to be able to put all this together. And then comes the magic and what it all looks like. And this is a real life client of one of the outcomes. And you can see all this information in here that Derek would get, that Sean would get, my fellowship would get of all this information to build the right tools, to build the right copy, the right content, the flow, an incredible amount of information that your creatives you go to right now on your own do not have and do not have the talent or the ability to be able to build for you. That's not their job. So stop asking them to do this. Let them work within your genius. You won't be frustrated. They won't be frustrated. And you will build this business from a system, from a process, from a blueprint that is predictable, sustainable, and profitable. So I'm going to chime in here with Derek, and I'm going to ask Derek to comment on this because this is just that piece that I pulled up from the unique value proposition on the target clientele for this certain advisor space. And in the beginning, when the advisor came to me as we were talking, I said, who is your ideal client? Where's your niche market? And he said, high net worth business owners. But when you say just business owners, you know and I know that is a rammery of a whole entire thing. So we have to get incredibly, incredibly specific for the right language to speak to the right person. So, Derek, with this, if you and when you receive this from me, what do you see here? Where does your brain go? How would you help this ideal client of ours actually give copy and content that's bold and smart?
Well, first off, um, this is another case where the foundation is already in place. I think it's very important to note this level of granular detail is not something you can expect in other environments. One of the things that happens, and Kim, you had mentioned at the very start that 6% success rate within the advisory space. So much of that has to do with the fact that firms and individual advisors make a very common mistake. And they can be forgiven for it because so many of us do, even those of us who are in the business of marketing, they think marketing has to do with brand. That's not entirely wrong. But here's the thing that 6% of advisors does so well. They know it's really about relationships. And so when I see the material like this that's come out of the big work that so many people invest all of their time, energy, and resources in avoiding the big work, I'm able to see from the very start, we're not just talking about pre-retirees, we're not just talking about individuals in their 50s. We're starting to get down to a more granular level. And this allows us to start determining not just copywriting frameworks, but how to develop relationships, when to use particular tactics. We're able to segment. And Sean, I want to bring you back in just a second, because one of the examples you use is so instructive here because it happens on the copywriting side of this as well. It has to do with understanding your, what I like to refer to as audience of one. Where are they? When are they there? How do they behave online? Where are they most comfortable? If you're using a standard framework without that type of discrimination or distinction, then you're using exclusivity, but you're not doing it with intent. You're not bringing the right people to the table. Sean, the example that you've used that I always come back to is knowing your audience of one to the degree that you understand when they are accustomed to reading with their full attention, right? And so if we're dealing with a busy advisor, there are going to be certain times in the day when sending out a carefully crafted, properly segmented email makes the most sense and is going to lead to that 100% open rate. Sean, I'd love to hear that example again. I just think it's so illuminating.
Absolutely. And when it comes to technology that we have at our fingertips, it's only getting smarter by the day. So the idea of speaking to that audience of one, no matter what size your list is, you're ultimately sending a message to one person at a time. That's the goal. That's where the conversation is happening. So, we've got CRM systems, email marketing systems that will start to learn when people are opening emails and things like that. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that, if said client is a morning reader, that can we have their emails or their text messages come in the morning and things like that. Um, you know, this is an evolving process. So out of the gate, you're not going to know all that information. So this is stuff of using the results, the analytics, the stats from all this marketing that we're doing to start to learn. And a lot of people don't ever go and look at this information, or they don't know where to pull this information from. And that's the stuff that I absolutely love in there. And really a simple thing, if you're listening to this and you have something in place now, one little tweak that I tell people is if you're doing just a basic like opt-in to a newsletter, for lack of a better term, and you want to send out emails, instead of timing them as a day apart, time them at 24 hours apart, which means that if I opted in at 7 p.m., there's a key identifying metric that I'm online at 7 p.m. That's when I'm opting in. My next email is going to come at 7 p.m. It's not going to come the next day at 8 a.m., which typically, if you do one day apart, is happening when that happens. So the hour loops are a great starting point.
Well, and I also want, Jen, because I know you've got a very big smile and have been nodding, right? You're bouncing around here. This also goes so far beyond the standard practice of using, say, dynamic placeholders in emails. And so on the behavioral side of this, connecting all of this together, what are you seeing here?
Oh, this is trauma-informed practices. So this is understanding that humans need to feel safe in order to feel like they can spend, buy, believe in a product, a person, that relationship. And those trauma-informed practices are things like predictability, voice, choice. And again, you may naturally build some of that into your business model, but the understanding of this team to know how that all works together, to see that and be able to pull that out, not just in the words, not just in the tech, but to build that reciprocal relationship, which I love that word too, because I always say like it's relationship retention, relationship resilience. There's so much that builds that bond. And again, we think about it in terms of simple B2B or, tech to my customer, but really it is a thread between what I believe is important and what that customer is letting me know or showing me is important and building that in a predictable, safe way.
Mhm.
It's phenomenal.
Mhm. I love my team. I absolutely love you guys give me goosebumps because these are the parts, these are all the words, right? Again, that tension I was feeling, right? Getting really curious of how can we really help change that number, that 6%. It should not be that way. It should not. TikTokers, Instagram influencers should not be millionaires talking about your financial and you taking advice from them, right? I want my regulated, my educated, my very caring and competent individuals to have the confidence to move forward and speak in your language. And before we move on to the next slide, because I want Derek just to chime in on one more little part too here, or excuse me, it'll be Sean on this part. I apologize. The next little piece. Actually, it'll probably be Derek and Sean because you guys are very close. But anyways, when you look at this, this is why I say niche inward. This is the biggest realization that I want you to take away. This is the part that I coach in, right? I start out of who do you want to be, right? And we go through the process and then who is your ideal client? When we go through this whole process, you are going to see that your ideal client target market is you. It is you 5 to 10 years backwards and 5 years forward. But that common is you had the expertise and the experience to help that client today. And as you grow and move forward, because you are going to grow and move forward, so is your ideal client target market. And this is why you have to go back. So when you read through this, we spent a lot of time. This is the actual ideal target client that I was help coaching through, and they serve that exact individual. So it's no longer just business owners. It is no longer, because business owners are huge, it's no longer just high net worth, right? Are they a multi-generational business or are they founder level? We figured out, oh my gosh, it's founder level because multi-generational and founder level has two totally different approaches, language, totally different systems, totally different language, totally different behaviorals and traumas to deal with, right? So, niche inward out of everything that I say today that I want you to take, that is the strongest thing to realize. But someone has to take you through it and ask you those really big, important questions. So, as we're looking at this part and on the whole entire blueprint, there's pillars and intentions. And pillars and intentions is what we call the actionables that you need to implement for the year. Within the pillars, there's 5 pillars that come through it and we're just pulling out one. But within every, again, pillar, there's no more than 3 non-negotiables that you need to say and commit to actioning for the year. If you do more than 3, you are not going to do it. Don't fool me. You've been doing this for a long, long time. I've been doing this for a long time. I know, right? So when we're looking at these, we actually set this up again in a behavioral way. This is an anchor. All the language that I use is very intentional. And I talk to Derek a lot of going, okay, is this language right? Or Derek will give me feedback too. So using this language of these are client anchors, the client that they are going to take care of and build all these systems and tools for must have the same value before engagement begins, must come in through a referral or a vetted introduction. No cold calls, no misaligned, right? They must come through the door the exact same way, and they do not skip steps, right? This company, SFO, does not skip steps for anyone. They do not start mid practice or take over any other advisor's work. They have to start from ground zero with SFO from the beginning. So when we look at this and how we put this together in language, again, that is so incredibly important, is you see the focuses that are non-negotiable, that are bold. And then we answer this and we go through this way in the language of we will deliver communications and touch points in clear human language that build proactive emotional guardrails for clients who feel overwhelmed, including warm handoffs and trusted resources when needed. So big picture, high net worth, ultra high net worth client. Most of the time advisors think, oh, they care about taxes and optimization. No, they don't. That's what you care about, right? Your big things is not their big things. Your big things that you care about are the small things. So when we profile a high net worth or ultra high net worth client, we know their mindset is, I can always make more money. Tax is just the name of the game. It's just table stakes. Got to do it. Don't care how much tax I have to pay. They always think that they can make more money. They are able to do it, and they're very protective of their empire. So as Sean talked about delivering things at the right time when it makes sense, and we've profiled a founder level, empire protecting, ultra high net worth individual, we're mindful of not sending emails or important emails during holidays because when it's holiday time, they're off. They're never going to open it, right? They protect the empire they built. When we are using language, right? It is never scarcity language. It's abundant mindset language, right? And I can go on and on and on, but this part is so important. And then we answer it in a way of, and it's the because. It's actually one of the things Derek taught me right in the beginning was to change for your opinion to a fact, use the phrase because connect. It's one of the first things I ever learned from Derek. So the so that is the because, so that clients feel understood, supported as whole people, not as financial entities, strengthening trust and loyalty. So when we have this and we put this together, this is the combination of it all: behavioral psychology, good copy, systems, tools, hardware, all delivered and developed from really strong foundational coaching. Does anyone want to chime in quickly before we go next?
I
I'll let
have
all of you.
yeah, really quickly, Kim, just because again, a differentiator is when you look at this chart, if I am an employee, if I am working for somebody and I see we will, what that gives me is not just guardrails or boundaries, but as a leader of an organization, I have an opportunity to reinforce those behaviors, to say, I know we will do these things. And when I see you doing those things with or for our clients, I'm going to let you know because you're going to do it more and better. That's the cycle of behavioral practices, right? That's encouraging those things that we want to see. And then they're going to keep doing that with clients, with people. That's going to build that business, build the trust, build the relationships. So there's such a great cycle of, again, behavior copy systems working together.
Well, and also too, is there anything more transformational than the seeing leadership, or Kim, you've been using this word, your fellows, right? The coalition that you're building. Is there anything more transformative, empowering, exciting than seeing them walk the talk, getting down into the trenches, putting it all into practice? That is so, it just changes the landscape. And as you've been saying, you don't get there if you don't look inward. if you're in a leadership position, you're if you're not attuned, if you're not at the water cooler, if you're not part of the team, if you hold yourself apart, you're never going to get the feedback that allows you to grow. And this I find so important. The point that you just made, all of what we're talking about here happens in a cohesive, harmonized way. You're not going to your coach over here. You're not going to your other coach over here. You're not then trying to find a VA or hire in a team of interns over here. You're not then handing this off to this person who, all of this is being communicated and all of it is being mapped out so that, again, that metaphor of the blueprint is absolutely pivotal. You walk away not just knowing you have all of this stuff in place, you also know at any given point you have the support of the entire team and their full attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Sean, do you want to chime in before I move forward or do you
Yeah,
want...
absolutely. So,
Cool.
you know, the way I look at all this is we've touched on this about it. It's the relationship. It's the experience that your clients need to feel and believe and trust. And we look at all that big work that's done in the beginning of understanding what's important to them, what's important to you, and what are you trying to get across. And then, this phrase pops in my head, and it's been said to me many times, being in relationships is not what you said, it's how you say it. I think both of those are true. So when we look at this process, the copy is what you're saying. The system is how we are going to say it to them, how we're going to give it to them, right? So, and that's equally important along the way. But there's another part in there. It's what are they saying back to you? What are those signals that they're giving back to you? And can your system identify that, or do you just need to be tuned into the replies that are coming back into those messages that are there? So there's a lot of key pieces in that journey, but ultimately the stuff that you do in that foundational big work with Kim, we we want to carry that through. And by having this team directly aligned and understanding all that, you're not getting these disjointed service providers that are just trying to reinvent the wheel. The concept of this, fill out this 2-page ideal customer profile form that marketers tend to throw on their clients all the time, it doesn't work because it's not deep enough.
I was going to say, and then you just become a vendor manager, right? You are managing vendor partnerships more than you are your business or the clients and the work you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. Definitely. I'm going to, and guys, I apologize. I don't have my watch in front of me. How are we doing for time?
9:48.
Oh my goodness. So I'm not going to tell a story here. And I'm going to skip over this slide and I'm going to put a link within this to kind of help. There's a little bit of a story and then there's a little bit of an understanding that Jen and I have talked about before. But what truly is important is everything we are doing here and built together follows this pattern. Use your brain with people, use the right tools and automation, use your brain. This is incredibly important with every new piece of technology or thing that comes forward. Brain, LLM brain. Okay. This is something that I want to kind of put in. So this is an actual client again. We always give a proposal. And the big part and the differentiator with us too is that our proposals are not about us. It is always in the client's colors. It's in the client's branding. It's in the client's font. It's everything right from day one. It's not full of testimonials of Kim Skirmer is amazing or Derek's amazing, Sean's amazing, Jenny's amazing. 100% from the beginning is about you, the client. And this is a behavior that we teach you. So again, it's not about SFO's brand, the client we were talking about before. We actually talk to the client, the colors, the streams, the everything, the imagery that makes sense to the brand voice because we niched inward and your ideal client target market is you. All you're changing is some colors and some fonts and some pictures that actually relate back to them. So looking at this, again, this is the foundational blueprint that we have. When you look at the second stage, oops, I was clicky McClickerson happy Gen X hitting too many buttons, right? So structure was the first, strategy now. And this was really interesting when Sean even just talked about the testing where I almost came out of my skin cheering because we don't test, we don't go back and look at the analytics, right? People think I'm an A-type driven personality person. I actually profile hugely analytical, right? I just come out very driven, very A-type because I have the confidence and the competence to speak to a specific situation. And honey, you can't shut me up when I know what I'm doing. Right. So step two, strategy, right? So this is where we start building the websites, the automation, the brand voice, the analytics, the engagement. We look and we measure and test. When we look on the bottom left-hand corner, depending on how you're looking at this, consult, measure, and test. And every one of these lines, again, all starts with the UVP on how we do it and the pillars and intentions, the voice. And then we start implementing specific strategies for that specific persona of yourself and that ideal client and target market. And I'm just going to go to one more and I'm going to pop on Derek for this one. And then tactics. This again is very individual to the specific clients, right? The forms and the windows, they all change depending on what your needs are, where you are, who your client is. This is all organic. Frank Lloyd Wright. Common vision, common environment, all these things that make sense for good design. So now this person is going to do solution posts, call to action posts, like all of these pieces. It's very funny. A client I just talked to books keynote speakers for a living. That's her company. And all her clients are not all her clients, but she's stuck, she's stressed out, she's tired. And she looked at this form of mine and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the bottom right-hand corner. They're coming to me for keynote, bottom right-hand corner." And we wonder why they're frustrated or all this don't have the systems and tools. They go do the speech or they're focused on the TED Talk or this. How are you going to implement it? What are the language going out? What is the systems? What does the filters look like that you are sending out to make sure that you get booked at the right place? Right? Bottom right-hand corner, last step, where people will spend $12,000, $15,000 to try and get booked by a PR agent, but you're not willing to do the big work in the beginning to actually double, triple down your success. Right? Derek, do you want to chime in or do you want me to keep moving?
Oh, do I ever? So a couple of things happen. One, you accidentally move directly from the first slide to tactics. One of the things I think is central to the work we're doing is we're reverse engineering that reverse engineering that's happening all the time because this is exactly how most firms operate. They go from, okay, let's get started directly to tactics, and they skip the strategy. We make a point of starting at the beginning with you. So that little misstep, right, that happy accident, as Bob Ross would say, is actually really illuminating because it illustrates how most firms operate, which results in that 94% fail rate. Another thing here that I think is very helpful, you do this all the time, Kim, and I love it because it's so creative. It's playful, but it's also purposeful. And that's one of the distinctions that enRICHed brings, play with purpose, because play is where we discover. That's where all of the great ideas live. When we talk about UVP, we're not just talking about unique value proposition. Can you do me a big favor? You shared this with us just a little while ago. What does UVP actually mean?
Tears and goosebump moments. 30 years of my life work of structure and tension and getting pissed off and all the emotions that you have to lean deep into. UVP really stands for uncover, validate, then position, rewind and repeat. Oh, goosebumps. It is the greatest thing than the realization because UVP, value prop, ICP, alphabet soup, I don't care, whatever, right? We have more acronyms and whatever. One day I'll tell you what FYI really means. But anyways, so we throw this out. There's PDFs all the time. You can even go to Canva and just write, give me a UVP template, and you've got it all there. right? We become this robotic thing of just filling this out, and we don't lean into mindset and behaviors we actually have to uncover. Then, as human beings, we have to validate it, we have to test it, we have to implement, like all of the things that takes for validation that we need for it to be healthy, right? And then position it on somewhere, systems, tools, or your positioning, your flag in the ground statement. It's huge.
That's a different way, not just of doing business, but of thinking about
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
That highlights the importance of relationship, and it brings people into, here's another word we don't hear often enough, communion. Not just fellowship, but communion. When you're operating at that level, you're not just doing marketing anymore. You're not just investing in ROI. You're
Mm,
making real, meaningful, lasting connections. And those fuel all of your growth. Those fuel all of the possibility that lies ahead.
yeah. I love it. I love it. So I want to make things very clear. I have one powerful platform. Okay. So I have my independent coaching at the Approach Coaching Method, and it's a think tank. It's one-on-one. It's very personalized and private. Then we're launching our Tap In community. This is Tap In 2.0. It's our second year. It starts October 27th. Follow along in all our socials. We'll show the announcements, how to subscribe, how to be part of this community. Because maybe you don't want to do this all on your own. And sometimes funding is also a question too. So you've got to go through this experience, but it's where we really talk about all of these pieces within the blueprint. We take you through, we give you some exercise, and then there's enRICHed. This is the reason why I started 5 years ago on my own and left my senior executive position. And the best way I can explain this is to go a little wooey. So I'm going to go a little wooey. I'm going to mess this up. I have goosebumps because this is the first time I've ever really said this out loud, but I played it over my head. This was my gerbil in my head last night when I couldn't go to sleep. Okay. So there's four yogis, very, very wise people walking through the forest. And they usually actually don't go for walks together, but for some reason, the intellectual, the mystic, the man of action, and the devotee ended up going for a walk together in the forest. And as they were walking along in the forest, all of a sudden it started to rain. This huge storm came to be. And the devotee said, because she's very grounded, she spends a lot of time in nature, said, I know that there is a bit of a temple, a broken down building just around the corner. Let's all run here together. So they all, the mystic, the intellectual, the man of action, the devotee, go running towards this place for shelter. When they get there, there's just a roof and just a couple of pillars on the side holding that roof up, no walls. And in the middle of that room, there was almost looking like a deity, a temple, something there. And they're kind of looking around and trying to figure it all out because, they actually don't talk very often, right? The intellectual thinks the mystic's a bit of an idiot. The man of action just says, what the solution is, just do something, have some systems, some tools. The devotee, in her wisdom all the time, just said, just ground this wellness. This is what's important. So they all had these different opinions on how to do business, how to live life, what was important. We were all kind of stuck in our wisdom. But when they actually went and looked at that deity that was in the middle of that room where they were trying to get shelter from, the rain started hammering more and more and more, getting everyone wet. And that little deity, that idol in the middle, they looked and they got closer and they started to hug to protect from the rain. And they noticed that that deity was actually alive. It was just resting. It was sleep. It was not there. It was not awake. Another crack of thunder happened and they all hugged in and around this idol. And this idol awakened. And as this idol awakened, they're going, oh my gosh, what is going on? This is absolutely magical. How is this happening? And that advisor that they hugged around looked at all the very wise, wise people and said, it was about time all you idiots got together. I almost had it. It's almost perfect. I got to practice it a couple more times. But I wanted to explain how important this is, right? We have the intellectuals thinking it's this, it's A, B, C, right? Very factual, right? We have the devotees, the emotional ones, the behavioral, right? The individual saying, just go ground yourself, right? We have the the mystics, the storytellers, the bold and smart, the books are our friends, really good communication, language matters in one room in the sector. And then we have those systems, those tools, the automation, just take action on something. Stop making it so difficult, you idiots. All of us think that in every world and realm in a nice way. It is about us finally coming together where all these storms of ideas are happening. And we go underneath shelter and we've decided to hug you, the advisor, to awaken you, to make you feel better. And I will tell you, every client that we have worked with together saying, thank God you idiots finally got together. So with that, these are what these guys put up with me. With that, is there any closing remarks, all my lovely fellowship people?
Just thank you. I've never felt good being called an idiot before.
That's the power of the program right here, right?
Right.
There it is.
Yeah, it totally, I love it so much. I really do. Please, here's all the contact information up there for the approach where everything kind of starts. There are many different systems, tools, there's parts, there's actual caveats to come in and join programs, all of that, because we want to make sure we are the right people for you and you are the right people for us. So thank you. Please follow along. We're going to share lots of information, lots of comments, commentary, everything, but my lovely people, we are in this together. And I thank my fellowship for showing up with me today. So thank you.